And so in this video lecture, we're going to focus on the concept of human capital. And human capital in your text in some other aspects is referred to as workforce development. Human capital is more of the economic terminology. And of course, workforce development could also be translated down to education level and education and training. And so it's hugely important in community development. In fact, one could argue that it would be one of the most important components. A Federal Reserve Bank study analyzed economic growth. So if you're looking at the growth model in a community, over a 75-year period, attracting and retaining a skilled workforce is the top predictor of the economic growth of cities, regions, and states. And so, most communities have what they call a talent development strategy, a strategy by which they work in conjunction with different institutions in the community to develop their human capital. Certainly, one of the most important things is to focus on education and having a good education system, top to bottom, but particularly that translation of local residents who go to college and become college students in the community or eventually come back to the community. And so attraction of out-of-state students to local colleges is also a part of the talent strategy. And of course, Western has done a great job, and Bowling Green has benefited tremendously from this, not just from Western, but also from entities like the Gatton Academy, which bring very high levels of human capital into Bowling Green. And all the research all around the country with colleges and university towns shows that about 60%, in some cases more, in some cases a little less, tend to stay in the community where they go to college. And so there is a staying power where people go to college, and that matters. Many talent development strategies focus on STEM because so many jobs are tied to science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but also ways that you can retain those students when they graduate, we've just mentioned. And of course, there are a lot of folks in the community who are working or who have maybe been displaced from the education system without getting a credential. There are also strategies, talent development strategies, to try to get those people to complete whatever credential they're working on, whether it's a certificate, whether it's a high school diploma, whether it's a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree or even a graduate degree. And so ways to get those people engaged in getting to the next level. But also there are pathway programs in what we call the incumbent workforce. And so the incumbent workforce are people that are currently working. And many folks that are in the workforce are underdeveloped. And so they can go to the next level, but they lack the education and training to do it. And so there are programs that a lot of communities use to go into those places of business and partner with those places of business to get them, to get their incumbent workforce additional training, additional programming to help make them better and to help develop them as talent in the community. And of course, lastly, there are programs out there to bridge and to create scholarship economic opportunities for economically disadvantaged and first-time students. And of course, Western, I think, is putting themselves on the map as one of the places in the country doing this really well right now. And so let's also look at the idea of talent expansion and ways that communities can look to recruit talent, because not all talent is talent that you develop that's part of the community from square one through the education system or even through the college and university system. There is a declining population for young people, and this young people are commodities. Growing and prospering the future of communities and regions, workforce and education development is part of it, but the other part of it is creating a community where young people want to live. And so how you expand and develop the community to make it inviting to young people is important. And that's where a lot of YP organizations, young professional organizations, some involved with chambers of commerce, some involved with other entities or standalone entities. Some of it's involving the attraction of college graduates from outside the region to come back. Many communities, probably one of the most noteworthy is Tulsa, Oklahoma, and something called the Come Home Strategy or Your Home Strategy, where they offer tax credits, in some cases free housing, where they're targeting retirees, but they're also targeting young professionals, entrepreneur, and now in the age of COVID, attracting people with portable jobs that can take their job and work anywhere they want to live. This is a program that we did in Owensboro, not thought of as a college town, but has 3 colleges. And so ways that you can market and create a town and gown model. And the town and gown model is an effective strategy because colleges and universities are really significant players, and not just big research university, but in many cases, small liberal arts colleges are some of the most vibrant and provide really the best opportunities. And so looking at these communities, a very large proportion of them have liberal arts colleges, and ways that they can connect are hugely important. And you can see just looking at the counties in the United States that have small colleges and ones that have no colleges, you can see the importance of those institutions in the poverty level, in the social capital, in the economic distress level, but also in the bachelor attainment level and the income level. And so those are important components of workforce development strategies in communities all around Kentucky. This is a good slide to help understand the changing nature of the workforce and how the workforce is evolving with technology. The right-hand side of the graphic shows what the modern workforce looks like. It's not dirty. It's really based on a knowledge economy where people are working in technical areas, servicing equipment, understanding computers and digital technology and programmable controls. The left-hand side is the old economy that's really more manual labor and more built around less levels of education and training. And so nationally, you're seeing this change in workforce participation that's really becoming significant to where fewer and fewer men especially are engaged in the workforce. And of course, the workforce participation rate for college graduates is much, much higher than those with just a high school diploma. And that's really part of what's happening as the economy is evolving. You are beginning to see, even since the 1990s, the bachelor's degree play an increasingly larger role in the number that are conferred, but also in the opportunities that those people have. The 2 other components are the middle skill jobs and the high school only. But before we get into those different derivatives, I think it's important to understand that one of the things that's evolving in that has a tremendous impact on workforce is the new life cycle of young adults. A low wage, high skill economy has really created a new part of the life cycle of young people. And it's costly because the system has not really adjusted to help support young people in transition from school to work. And again, it's happening more with men than it is with women. And so workforce participation, some of it's related to the fact that there just are fewer high-level jobs because of AI. And so it's having a tremendous impact. Here you can see since the 90s, the real drop-off in workforce participation for people who are 16 to 19 age group. And of course, that participation level stays quite low even into the 20s, and the average age in which a person leaves the nest has grown from about 24 to about 29. And so it's pretty significant. And you can see if you have just high school diploma, you have a declining skill level that's in demand. It's not in demand anymore. And you can see that decline since 1990. That's a pretty significant level of decline. The middle skills are a lot more marketable because those jobs are still growing. They're not growing as fast as bachelor degree jobs, but they're still growing. The bachelor's degree is the largest growth area, and these are skilled service industries. And since 2016, you can see the 18% change, which is a pretty noteworthy movement. And so if you look at a couple of different communities, Bowling Green, Dubuque, Kokomo, Indiana, Owensboro, all small cities that are in the kind of scope of what we're looking at through this course, you can see male 25 to 34, 34 to 44, 45 to 64, and female. And you can see where by gender, where the age groups where you're seeing a larger bachelor attainment, mostly among females. And of course, you can see holding those younger people very, very much higher levels of bachelor degree attainment among the younger crowd. You can see the communities like Kokomo and Owensboro that don't have the larger universities that have a harder time holding their bachelor's degrees, but also seeing much larger differences between the males and the females. And then lastly, I think what you're seeing still that's noteworthy is still growth. The pandemic has really been very difficult for ages 16 to 29. People in that age range, constitute less than a quarter of the labor force, but they account for over a third of the unemployment. And so the economic effects, and again, it's part of that life cycle piece, and the pandemic is going to exacerbate that even more. The other piece I think that's important is we talked about AI a moment ago, and AI is going to very definitely change things, because there are parts of Kentucky. Kentucky is the number 2 state in the nation with 48% of jobs at risk to automation. And Owensboro and Bowling Green are 2 cities that also are noted having about 49% in each community that are with jobs at high risk of elimination due to AI revolution. And so, this is mass industrialization created a working class, and, the AI revolution will create the unworking class. And so the question is, how do you deal with that? Do you have universal basic income where everybody's guaranteed a way to make a living wage? How do you take care of people? And of course, it's showing. Here is the labor market, 25 to 54, less than a 4-year degree, and the employment to population ratio. You can see the downward trend since 1980, it's bounced back a little bit, but wages, the decline in wages and the decline in employment, and of course, one of the things that come along with this is what they call the deaths by despair. And that's the drug, alcohol, suicide, mortality of whites, for the most part whites. And you can see in this case how based on the age groups, as people are younger, generational, you begin to see the differences that are very, very pronounced between the bachelor's degree and those without the bachelor's degree. Again, a workforce development issue. And so this concludes our discussion of workforce development and the importance of human capital in a community, and the importance of having and using the education system, 4-year, 2-year universities, colleges, as ways to help promote the development of your community.